come on, work, you stupid thing. Jesus Christ. And this is why traveling in a cryopod over the course of hundreds of years is a better mode of transport. God is dead and we have killed him. The previous episode of Rick and Morty was, certainly something, if I do say so myself. But one thing was very clear about that episode. It was not important to any overarching plots and was basically just for entertainment. Problem is, the entertainment itself was very strange and very bizarre. Episode 5, while following the same trend of being like a normal entertainment episode, actually was digestible and enjoyable and felt like your run-of-the-mill Rick and Morty episode. With the show doing its usual thing of like giving commentary on issues in the real world or problems in the real world like classism and class division, what money does to people, and showing us at the very end that the cycle will inevitably continue. But without any further ado, let us hop in our cryopods and just chill the fuck out. I mean, talk about Rick and Morty episode 5, season 8. Episode 5 opens with one of the most classic ways you can open a Rick and Morty episode. Inside Rick's car in the middle of space. Rick and Morty are listening to some podcast talking about the gruesome death of some lacrosse team, but they swiftly shut it off when the podcast announces that they won't be profiting off of the gruesome details of this lacrosse team's death. And this opening is pretty clever because Rick basically explains the entire plot of this episode by saying,
"Too bad, someone else will,"
in reference to how someone will always find a way to profit off of others' misery. They then detect a dormant cryo ship, and Rick enthusiastically suggests they go check it out, giving no details as to why. And with only incredible vagueness to go off of, Morty agrees post-haste. And as they fly towards the cryo ship, they put on another podcast that only talks about gruesome and grisly details.
Oh, we're talking.
Gotta say, this has been a pretty strong opening to the episode with its use of simplistic metaphors and effective dialogue exchanges. They board the ship, and only now does Rick reveal his intentions to rob the ship. Morty is a little bit skeptical, especially since Rick phrased it as,
"This'll be like taking candy from a baby, if that baby was in a coma."
Yeesh, that is a terrible way of phrasing it, Rick. But you know, this is Rick we're talking about. And the conflict is set up in a very classic adventure style. Rick and Morty disagree on something, Morty tries to stop Rick, and in doing so, gets them in a situation where Rick refuses to leave until he profits. They jump in 2 malfunctioned cryopods with the bones of dead people in them. Rick yells at Morty, roll credits. The cryopod that Rick jumped into turned out to be the cryopod of some kid of some rich family, and the parents start freaking out, thinking their son has like aged by like 80 years. God, I cannot imagine what that would be like. Imagine getting into a friggin' ice tube and being like, cool, see you in 200 years, son. And then you go to sleep, and then you wake up like early, like when you're not supposed to because of some emergency thing, and then you go to your son's cryo tube and he's an old ass man. That would be freaky. Morty, on the other hand, got into a cryopod of a janitor who worked in the sub-levels, literally shoveling the shit of rich people. If that ain't a commentary on our society, I don't know what is. The people Morty ends up with are called Makeys because they literally make the ship operate. Makeys is also 2 letters off of being monkeys, so, you know, take that as you will. We learn that the Makeys have these compliance chips in the back of their heads that literally shock them anytime they speak disobediently or insultingly about the rich folk. Yeah, they're slaves. They're slaves. As Morty realizes the gravity of the situation he's in, he immediately begins complying as Rick once again tries to break into the giant vault containing all the goods. Rick's fake parents come and see him trying to get into the vault, and Rick just plays it off as him being a dumb kid in an old man's body. Then his fake mother really, and I mean really, gives some clear as day commentary on the real world modern era.
That's all right, sweetie. Money affords us the ability to be dumb.
There is nothing else I feel I need to add to this line. It speaks for itself. Rick's parents explain that since he's old and dying, they're gonna make him an official citizen in this like coming of manhood ceremony, and that he's gonna get a key to the vault just like every other rich person. So Rick decides to just go with it as Morty is still cleaning shit down below. Morty also only gets 8 minutes for his lunch break, a measly 8 minutes. And the food he's given really ain't much better than the shit he's shoveling. As Morty gets explained as to why they're called Makeys, Morty makes a passing remark about how the rich people are then takeys. Huh. Very clever. Everybody stops in shock at Morty not getting shocked from his compliance chip. But Morty plays it off and is like, yeah, you know, man, you learn to live with the pain. War never changes, bro. Real smooth there, Morty. Later on, Morty's cleaning the upper decks and he runs into Rick. And reasonably so, Morty is pissed off while Rick is all happy that he's gonna get the fat loot. So unsurprisingly, Morty starts beating the ever-loving shit out of Rick and actually wins before being dragged off. Down in the sublevels, it's finally revealed to the Makeys that Morty don't even have a chip, and one of them proceeds to rip out their chip from the back of their head and dies instantly. Oh no, never mind, they're fine. So now that a poor but majority class realizes that they have the power to take what's rightfully theirs,
I think we all know where this is going.
revolution, baby! And while Morty is fermenting revolution, Rick is being gifted a family heirloom that isn't even his. And he's kind of coming to like appreciate and like his new fake parents. Turns out Morty's revolution is turning more violent and thought out by the second. Hell, Morty even accidentally plans the entire first battle of the revolution when he mentions Rick's ceremony. Even the priest is in on it, apparently. Jesus Christ, you know it's bad when the church is choosing sides. Battle starts, party farts, literal bleeding hearts, Rick and Morty expertly depart to the vault. Morty forces Rick's dad to open the vault, and they soon find it empty. And after a little bit of back and forth, Rick and Morty finally reveal who they are, and it's revealed that the kid Rick was impersonating and the janitor Morty was impersonating actually did rob the vaults. And then they, you know, bought a yacht and took to the casino world. Real discreet. As Morty tries to calm the situation and bring everything to a resolution with some emotional reflection to try and inspire this society to do better, they all make a mad dash for the casino world, trying to get all the money, completely ignoring anything else. Yikes. That is too real. What ensues is a space race of cosmic proportions, with Rick deciding to take this car, rich space car that he got from his rich space uncle from his ceremony. Besides, if they took Rick's car, this whole thing would just be a little bit too easy. You know, like how the whole rob the sleeping cryoship thing was supposed to be easy. Rick's having a ball of a time in this race, especially when he kills the priest who was remarking, I never believed in God, and then as soon as he's about to die, he's like, no, I believe in God, I believe in God. This race, and this episode in general, has a lot of gags like that throughout its runtime, and I really got a kick out of a lot of them. Hey look, Casino Planet shot from the trailer. As the race comes down to the streets of Casino Planet, this fucking huge ass ship joins the race, with the guy on board being all excited about how he finally gets to drive the ship. He makes a hard right turn for some reason. Did he find a shortcut or something?
Nope, he's just nuts.
Oh, okay. Checks out. Then there's this space cop who comments about how his favorite part of the job is escalating situations. Clearly a jab at overzealous law enforcement officers, but seriously, that should be any officer's least favorite part of the job. Rick and Morty finally make it onto the space yacht and make it into the room where the criminal 11-year-old and his janitor friend are holding all the stolen wealth. Rick calls the kid a little brat and says that he doesn't deserve the parents he has, which, like, I was kind of taken by surprise by that line, because it was like, it was just really sweet, and yeah, I don't see that from Rick too much. No one sees that from Rick too much. Seems the only time he is sweet is when he's just in the middle of it, when he's in the heat of it, when he's in the thick of it. When Rick is just in the thick of it, his sweet side just tends to pop out in a really aggressive manner. Eventually, Morty gets held at gunpoint, and he tells Rick to hang on to something as Morty proceeds to space all of the fat stacks on board. And Morty proceeds to give a way too real, way too relatable conclusion of a statement.
People will never stop killing each other for this dumb shit. It's over, Rick.
Yeah, you got that right, Morty. People will never stop killing each other over something as stupid and trivial as money. Story of our fucking species. And Morty was spot on, of course, as all the people in the spaceships chasing down the wealth put on their spacesuits and try to grab as much of the money as they can while killing as many people as they possibly can. Since Rick isn't 100% asshole anymore, you know, more like 99, maybe 98% asshole, he devises a solution for all the remaining people who were aboard the cryoship. He puts compliance chips into all of them, creating an even playing field, and charts the ship to an inhabitable planet. And these chips will actually kill you if you remove them this time, because, you know, It's Rick. But right as Rick's fake parents are about to give him a sweet goodbye after Rick apologizes for impersonating their son, they get into an argument with their actual son, and appropriately, Rick and Morty take this opportunity to dip. Rick reflects on his fake parents, and it's clear that he did form some kind of attachment to them. Sure, they were dumb, rich a-holes, but actually, no, they really weren't that much a-holes. They were pretty mean, you know, they were insulting and yelled at their kid a lot, but they seemed kind of nice, you know? And he says the famous quote, "You can choose your friends, but not your family." And Morty points out how he is Rick's family, and how Rick did choose him. And Rick is in agreement and decides to just say that the quote is dumb. You might think he's calling it dumb in some roundabout way of trying to insult Morty, but I actually think it's the opposite. I think he's calling it a dumb quote because even though Morty is his family, of course Rick is gonna choose Morty over anyone else. Quite frankly, I think this little interaction tells us a lot about where Rick's head is at these days. And clearly, it's in a place where Morty is an extremely high priority for him. The episode concludes with another cryo ship popping up on their scanner, this time a medical cryo ship. Morty only agrees to go if they're in for 5 minutes tops, and Rick doesn't hog all the drugs this time. Rick is sold, off they fly, and the adventures of Rick and Morty continue. Roll the credits, editor. I really enjoyed this episode. Not only did it give fantastic commentary about our world and things like classism and the stupidity of the 1%, but it was also just genuinely a fun episode. At the very start, I said that Rick's comment about how someone always profits off of others' misery is kind of a metaphor for the entire episode. And now that we're at the end, let's talk about that for a minute. Not only was Rick attempting to profit off of this cryoship, but he was also impersonating what a couple thought was their dying son, and he used that to try and profit even further. And their actual son was profiting off of their misery by stealing all of their wealth, and he was even trying to make them miserable by thinking it was, oh, funny if I woke up and you thought I was turned into a monkey. Like, what the fuck? That is so messed up. Morty unintentionally profited from the Makey's misery by fermenting a revolution. Said revolution is what ultimately led him back to Rick, which also gave him the perfect excuse to help Rick profit, ergo, his way out of this situation. I really like episodes of shows that kind of set the premise of the entire episode with like a simple dialogue exchange or a comment or something at the very beginning. It's very effective and it kind of makes you stop and think for a second. Because if you're watching a show that you know employs these tricks, you tend to think about little exchanges like this a little bit harder. But aside from the deep writing stuff, this was just genuinely an enjoyable classic Rick and Morty adventure. And it had some pretty cool stuff in it and some very classic stuff, like the simple adventure getting out of hand. We had the really colorful and enjoyable casino planet with all sorts of wacky aliens, a space race / chase, some solid music choices, and of course, some Rick and Morty style lessons about family. And of course, showing us that Rick and Morty will only continue getting into situations like this because it's just in their nature. There also wasn't a B plot this episode. I guess you could technically consider Morty's time with the Makeys as like a B plot, but it wasn't really divergent enough from the main plot to be considered a B plot in my opinion, because said B plot directly contributes to the A plot and they're directly connected and affecting each other constantly, so I wouldn't really consider it a B plot. Also, for how short it is, like for the amount of time Rick and Morty are separated, they're barely separated for 5 minutes, at least in terms of the show's or the episode's runtime. That's not really enough time to consider it a B plot. Episode 4, the previous episode, really felt like a low point this season, and I was not the biggest fan of that episode. But I gotta say that this episode, episode 5, restored my faith that once the season has concluded, I will be able to confidently say that it was a good season of Rick and Morty. If you enjoyed this video and the episode itself, please feel free to leave all thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. And while you're down there, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd hit the like and sub button. Like I said, we're very close to 15k subs, and it would be awesome. It would be awesome if we could hit that by the end of June. And you know, of course, if you want my thoughts on the rest of the season, definitely hit the like and sub button. And if you want to show me a little bit of extra support and you really like the way we do things around here, then definitely consider becoming a channel member. Not only do you get access to a whole bunch of exclusive rewards, but you also directly support me in the process and help me keep this channel running. And just to say it again, once we hit 10 consecutive channel members, I will start doing weekly members-only streams where you, the members, get to decide what I, the entertainer, suffers through. Well, I sure as hell am not using this portal again after last time. I think I'll just, oh, it looks like something's coming through. Oh, not that thing again. Come on, we're not even at the finale yet. Go on, shoot, get out of here. Before you ask, yes, I will be milking that thing for an entire season arc. Now get the hell out of here.